The midnight customer at Jennifer's pharmacy was shaking, nauseated, with slurred speech. Jennifer initially thought food poisoning, but her 17 years of toxicology background said otherwise. These were acute poisoning symptoms, signs that someone was being deliberately poisoned. Who poisoned you? She asked. Before we dive into this incredible story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if this story moves you, make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I have something very special planned for you. Riverside 24-hour pharmacy stood as a beacon for medical emergencies in the suburban community of Millbrook, its bright fluorescent lights cutting through the darkness at 12:30 a.m. on a Thursday night. The facility served residents who needed prescription medications during off-hours, emergency contraception, over-the-counter remedies for sudden illness, and the kind of medical supplies that couldn't wait until morning. Dr. Jennifer Walsh had been working the night shift for 4 years, ever since she'd moved to the quiet town seeking a peaceful life that was dramatically different from her previous high-stress career. At 43, she'd found unexpected satisfaction in helping people manage medical needs during vulnerable late-night hours, providing both professional pharmaceutical expertise and the kind of compassionate care that made frightened patients feel safer. The work was demanding but rewarding in ways that surprised her. Being the accessible medical professional who could provide accurate information, proper medications, and calm guidance during health crises felt like genuine community service, perhaps more directly meaningful than the federal investigations that had consumed the previous 17 years of her career. Jennifer approached each customer interaction with systematic attention that most people attributed to excellent pharmaceutical training and natural empathy for people experiencing medical distress. Her medication recommendations were precise, her safety protocols were thorough, and her ability to recognize potentially dangerous drug interactions or suspicious prescription patterns had prevented numerous medical emergencies. What customers didn't realize was that Jennifer's approach to pharmaceutical care had been shaped by 17 years as a CDC poison control specialist, where she developed expertise in toxicology, systematic poisoning identification, and the complex patterns that indicated deliberate attempts to harm people through chemical means rather than accidental exposures or medical complications. Her federal background had involved investigating poisoning cases that ranged from accidental industrial exposures to sophisticated murder attempts using rare chemicals, biological agents, or pharmaceutical combinations designed to mimic natural medical conditions. She had worked cases involving terrorist plots, assassination attempts, and serial poisoners who exploited medical knowledge to harm victims while avoiding detection. Those years had trained her to notice the smallest physical cues, the faintest inconsistencies in symptoms, and to read people in a way most pharmacists never needed to. The overnight shift typically brought predictable customers. Parents with sick children who couldn't wait for morning pediatrician appointments, shift workers needing prescription refills after long hours on the job, elderly residents managing chronic conditions that required round-the-clock medication schedules, and occasionally individuals dealing with mental health crises who needed professional guidance about dangerous medication interactions. For Jennifer, these encounters were part of a steady rhythm: reassurance, explanation, preparation of prescriptions. All handled with calm efficiency. But at 12:47 a.m., as she was methodically organizing inventory on the back shelf, the familiar front door chime cut through the quiet. She glanced up, expecting another routine visitor, but immediately felt her professional instincts sharpened. A woman in her mid-30s stepped inside. She was well-dressed despite the late hour, suggesting either deliberate presentation or a life that required her to maintain appearances. Yet her posture, her breathing, and the pallor of her skin betrayed something else entirely. Jennifer noted the fine tremor in her hands as she clutched her purse, the uneven gait as she approached the counter, and the subtle sheen of sweat at her temples. These were not the vague discomforts of a sleepless night or a minor flu. This was serious, systemic distress, the kind of presentation that rang alarm bells for someone trained to distinguish between ordinary illness and a potential toxicological emergency. The woman's eyes met hers briefly, filled with both desperation and a quiet fear, as if she knew something was deeply wrong but hadn't yet found the words to explain that. In that instant, Jennifer felt the familiar weight of her dual roles settle on her shoulders: pharmacist serving a late-night customer, and former federal toxicologist confronting the possibility of another hidden poisoning case. The customer was visibly trembling, her skin showing the kind of pallor that suggested circulatory problems, and her speech carried the subtle slurred quality that Jennifer's toxicology training had taught her to recognize as neurological impairment. Most concerning were the customer's eyes, which showed pupil responses that didn't match normal reactions to the bright pharmacy lighting. "That I need something for nausea," the woman said, her voice shaky and uncertain. "That I've been sick all evening, can't keep anything down, maybe food poisoning from dinner." Jennifer began her standard consultation, gathering information about symptoms, duration, recent food consumption, and current medications that might interact with recommended treatments. But her trained eye was cataloging clinical signs that activated alarms developed during 17 years of investigating deliberate poisoning cases. The customer's symptom combination: gastrointestinal distress, neurological impairment, specific types of tremors, and particular patterns of skin discoloration didn't match typical food-borne illness patterns. Jennifer's CDC background had taught her to recognize the subtle differences between accidental food poisoning and systematic chemical poisoning designed to cause harm while appearing like natural illness. Ma'am, Jennifer said carefully, how long have you been experiencing these symptoms? Started about 4 hours ago, the customer replied, right after dinner with my husband. He made this special meal to celebrate our anniversary. Jennifer's 17 years of poison control experience immediately recognized the significance of that timeline and circumstance. Acute poisoning symptoms appearing within hours of consuming food prepared by someone with access and opportunity represented classic deliberate poisoning patterns that she'd investigated numerous times during her federal career. Jennifer continued her consultation while conducting the kind of systematic toxicological assessment that had been routine during her CDC career. The customer's symptoms were progressing in ways that suggested ongoing chemical exposure rather than simple food contamination, and the specific combination of neurological and gastrointestinal effects pointed toward particular categories of toxic substances. Are you experiencing any metallic taste in your mouth? Jennifer asked, testing for indicators that would help narrow the range of possible toxic agents. Yes, actually, the customer replied with obvious surprise. How did you know that? It's been bothering me for the last hour. Jennifer's assessment was becoming increasingly alarming. The metallic taste, combined with the neurological symptoms and specific tremor patterns, suggested heavy metal poisoning, possibly arsenic or thallium, substances that required sophisticated knowledge to obtain and administer effectively. These weren't casual poisoning attempts by amateurs. They indicated someone with advanced chemical knowledge. Ma'am, I need to ask you some important questions, Jennifer said, moving to a more private consultation area. Do you have any reason to believe someone might want to harm you? The customer's reaction was immediate and telling. Fear replaced confusion in her expression, suggesting that she'd been trying to avoid considering possibilities that Jennifer's questions had forced her to confront. My husband and I have been having problems, she admitted quietly. He's been acting strange lately, asking about my life insurance, talking about how he could start over if something happened to me. Jennifer's 17 years of investigating deliberate poisoning cases had taught her to recognize the behavioral patterns that often accompanied systematic attempts to harm family members. Domestic poisoning frequently involved gradual administration of toxic substances designed to mimic natural illness while providing the poisoner with alibis and apparent innocence. Ma'am, I believe you may have been deliberately poisoned, Jennifer said with the kind of calm authority that came from years of federal training in crisis communication. We need to get you immediate medical attention and notify law enforcement. The customer's reaction confirmed Jennifer's assessment, shock followed by recognition, suggesting that she'd been suppressing suspicions about her husband's recent behavior and the timing of her mysterious illness. Jennifer immediately initiated emergency protocols, calling 911 for ambulance response while simultaneously contacting the Poison Control Center that maintained 24-hour consultation services for cases involving suspected deliberate poisoning. Her federal background provided her with direct access to specialists who could guide emergency treatment for exotic toxic substances. This is Dr. Jennifer Walsh, former CDC poison control specialist, she said when connected to the emergency toxicology consultation line. I have suspected deliberate heavy metal poisoning, probably arsenic or thallium, administered through food. Patient is conscious but showing progressive neurological symptoms. The emergency response was swift and coordinated. Paramedics arrived within minutes, followed by police officers who recognized the seriousness of potential domestic poisoning attempts. Jennifer's professional assessment provided crucial information that guided both medical treatment and criminal investigation procedures. Dr. Walsh, said Detective Maria Rodriguez, who coordinated the response, what's your assessment of this situation? Jennifer provided the kind of expert analysis that had made her valuable to federal investigations. Classic domestic poisoning pattern, sophisticated toxic agent, gradual administration, designed to appear like natural illness. The perpetrator has advanced chemical knowledge and access to restricted substances. Her toxicology expertise proved crucial for directing the hospital's treatment protocols. Many emergency room physicians had limited experience with exotic poisoning cases, but Jennifer's federal background enabled her to provide guidance that could mean the difference between recovery and Permanent damage. Jennifer found herself in the unusual position of serving as expert consultant while investigators coordinated their response to what appeared to be attempted murder through systematic poisoning. Her pharmacy became the starting point for understanding how the toxic substances had been obtained and administered. The symptoms and progression pattern suggest someone with professional chemical knowledge, Jennifer explained to the investigating team. This isn't amateur poisoning. Whoever did this understands toxicology well enough to select substances that would be difficult to detect without specific testing. Working with law enforcement, Jennifer helped analyze the customer's husband's background, discovering that he worked as a laboratory technician at a chemical company where he would have had access to the kinds of restricted substances that could cause the observed poisoning symptoms. The investigation revealed that the husband, David Chen, had been systematically administering small doses of thallium through his wife's food over several weeks, gradually increasing the dosage in an attempt to cause what would appear to be natural illness leading to death. His plan had been to collect life insurance money while appearing to be a grieving widower. Your recognition of the poisoning pattern probably saved her life, Detective Rodriguez told Jennifer during the case follow-up. Without immediate treatment, thallium poisoning has a high mortality rate. Jennifer's expertise had provided not only life-saving medical intervention but also crucial evidence for prosecution. Her ability to identify the specific toxic agent had enabled proper medical treatment, while her understanding of poisoning investigation procedures had helped law enforcement gather evidence that would support criminal charges. The criminal case against David Chen required Jennifer's expert testimony about poisoning identification, toxicology analysis, and the systematic nature of domestic poisoning attempts. Her 17 years of CDC experience made her a crucial witness for establishing the deliberate and premeditated nature of the crime. Dr. Walsh, the prosecutor, asked during trial, in your professional opinion, was this accidental poisoning? Jennifer's response drew on nearly 2 decades of investigating similar cases. Absolutely not. The substance used, the method of administration, and the gradual escalation pattern all indicate sophisticated planning designed to cause death while avoiding detection. Her testimony helped secure conviction on charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, and illegal possession of restricted toxic substances. David Chen was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and his wife recovered completely thanks to the early identification and proper treatment that Jennifer's expertise had provided. The case received regional attention, but Jennifer declined most interview requests. The pharmacy technician who'd recognized deliberate poisoning preferred to focus on the importance of recognizing unusual medical patterns and the ongoing need for poison awareness in medical settings. Poisoning cases are more common than most people realize, Jennifer explained to the reporter who did manage a brief interview. Healthcare workers need training to recognize when symptoms don't match normal illness patterns. Jennifer's successful identification of deliberate poisoning led to consultation requests from hospitals, law enforcement agencies, and medical professionals who needed expert analysis of suspicious illness cases. Her unique combination of current pharmaceutical access and former federal toxicology expertise made her valuable for situations that required both medical knowledge and investigative understanding. 6 months later, Jennifer had assisted with 4 additional suspected poisoning cases, helped train emergency room staff in recognizing toxic exposure patterns, and had become a regional resource for poison identification and investigation support. In several of those cases, her quick recognition prevented misdiagnosis and saved lives. People think pharmacy work is just about dispensing medications, Jennifer explained to a medical conference audience. But we're also guardians of medical safety and sometimes the first people who can recognize when someone is being deliberately harmed. Her overnight pharmacy had become an informal resource for poison awareness education and emergency toxicology consultation, serving both routine pharmaceutical needs and the occasional crisis that required specialized federal expertise. Parents with worried questions, doctors seeking second opinions, even detectives with quiet requests for guidance all began to see her as more than just a pharmacist. To them, Jennifer had become both a trusted professional and an unseen line of defense against dangers most people never imagined could exist in their own homes. 3 months after the Chen case, Jennifer encountered a similar situation when another customer displayed symptoms suggesting systematic poisoning. Her swift recognition and careful documentation led to early intervention that saved another life and resulted in the arrest of a different domestic poisoner who had been using her pharmaceutical knowledge to harm family members. It was proof that vigilance, even in routine interactions, could uncover hidden crimes that might otherwise go undetected. Her phone buzzed with a secure message from her former CDC unit supervisor. Suspicious illness cluster in Oregon, possible environmental poisoning or terrorist threat. Could use your expertise on toxicology assessment. The words carried weight. But Jennifer no longer hesitated when asked to balance her two roles. She looked at her pharmacy, then at the community she served during vulnerable overnight hours, and understood that both responsibilities were part of the same mission. I'll review the case files after my shift, she texted back. Jennifer often reflected that some skills never really retire, they just find new applications and new ways to protect people. Her federal work had trained her to see patterns where others saw only coincidence, and now that same skill safeguarded her neighbors. Jennifer Walsh, former CDC poison control specialist and current guardian of pharmaceutical safety and community health, continued her work one prescription at a time, one protected patient at a time. Each consultation wasn't just about dispensing medication, it was a chance to notice the irregularities that could mark the difference between illness and something far more sinister. She was living proof that the most important medical interventions often happen when someone knows how to recognize what normal illness should never look like, and when a professional chooses to act instead of dismissing the signs. Sometimes the most crucial poisoning investigations begin at midnight in suburban pharmacies, by people who know how to read the symptoms chemicals leave behind when they're used as weapons rather than medicine. Have you ever had professional training that helped you recognize a dangerous situation others might miss? Share your experiences in the comments below, and tell us what city you're watching from today. If this story of hidden medical expertise and life-saving recognition inspired you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Don't miss the compelling stories appearing on your screen right now. Click to discover more tales of everyday heroes with extraordinary knowledge who save lives in unexpected ways. Because sometimes the most important medical discoveries happen when someone knows how to distinguish between natural illness and deliberate harm.
See you in the next videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe.